Good morning, everyone. Today we're going to be working on nice shoulder opening, working through into our baby roll stretch. I like thinking about the baby roll stretch in terms of gait mechanics, really working that mobility of the spine related to how we walk. With every step that we take, our spine is moving through a full three-dimensional pattern. Every vertebrae does it. And if you have issues with those vertebrae being able to express their full pattern, they will impact every other level of movement above and below, going down to the feet, up to the head. So keeping a nice mobile spine related to gait is imperative to good efficiency of movement, good function, keeping irritation, inflammation, and pain down. So with all that, let's get started. We're going to start with our staff doing some shoulder mobility. So I want to get a nice shoulder width grip on the staff. This is where I want to imagine we're trying to bend or break the staff in two. And I want that bend to take place through turning through that wrist, turning through the elbow, so feeling the elbow pit spiral up towards the ceiling, and then shoulder blades should be spiraling down, packing towards our hips. So I want to have that nice active bend of the staff, like you're trying to break it in two. We'll start with the staff at our hips, and we're going to get into our breath. Nice inhale through the nose. Exhale through the mouth. As we exhale, we're feeling that belly draw up and into our spine. Inhale in through that nose, inflating that crocodile breath. Feel that balloon expansion through the abdominal wall. I want that balloon moving forward into the belly, out through the sides, and into the low back. With each inhale, we're trying to expand that balloon out. With each exhale, drawing that navel up and into the spine. Nice, smooth, slow breaths. I like about a 3 to 4 second count in both directions of the breath. As we're starting to feel that expansion of the abdominal wall, we're going to get into our pelvic tilts with that breath. So on that inhale, as you breathe in, allow the pelvis to start to tilt forward so that we get this sway in our low back. I want to make sure that we don't move into pinch or pain. On the exhale, as we draw that navel in, we're going to scoop our pelvis gently. That's going to take us into some lumbar flexion. Again, don't want to move into pinch or pain. And with each one, we're seeing if we can get a little bit more tilt in each direction without that pinch, without that pain. And feel that movement related to the breath. So that 3 to 4 second count in is how long we're moving that pelvis forward, and that 3 to 4 second count out is where we're slowly moving into that scoop. If you have tightness, tension in the low back, this is a good movement to get a good number of nice, slow reps. On the next inhale, as we fill up the belly, on the exhale, we're going to start to bring the staff up, seeing how high can we bring the staff and how far can we bring the elbows towards our ears. We're doing this at the same time that we're exhaling and scooping. So I want to feel that nice scoop as we draw the elbows back on our exhale. Inhale, elbows go forward as we fill up the belly, allowing that pelvis to tilt forward, getting the sway in our back. Exhale, draw that navel in, scoop and pull elbows at the same time. And with each one, see if we can get a little bit more squeeze. Can you draw those elbows a little bit further back? And I want to do this without losing that scoop of our pelvis. If you're noticing as you scoop, rib cage is also dropping and we get a little bit of engagement of our abdominal core. What I want to avoid is as we draw the elbows back that we lose that scoop and that rib cage sticks out and we get that big sway in our back while our arms are over our head. So I want to have that scoop engaged, and that's going to restrict how far those shoulders are able to go, but that's what we want. We want to feel that tension. Inhale opens it up, exhale, nice scoop as we pull. We can then we're going to now move the staff to behind the back. Palms are facing away from the body, so my palms are facing backwards. And I want to have that same bending of the staff, that same spiraling through the arms up into the shoulders, except we're bending it away from the body. So elbow pits are still spiraling forward, shoulder blades are packing down, and that should naturally help open up and lift the chest towards the ceiling. From here, we're doing our same inhale through the nose, exhale through the mouth, drawing that navel in. As we exhale, we're going to slowly lift the elbows up towards the ceiling. Again, nice squeeze. Inhale, let the elbows drop a little bit as we fill up that belly, getting a little bit of a sway in the back. Exhale, scoop as we lift. And again, I want to keep that nice 3 to 4 second count. Inhale, 3 to 4 second count. Exhale. With each one, I'm seeing if I can get a little bit more of this spiral through the arms. Can I bend or bow the staff a little bit more as I'm lifting it at the same time? I want to feel that engagement into the staff. Can you feel that lift and open the chest more as you're scooping? We're going to go ahead and flip our palms to the opposite side of the staff. So now the palms are facing forward. Everything else is the same. We're still trying to bend the staff away from the body. Nice inhale, get the sway in the back. Exhale as we draw the navel in, scoop, and lift elbows up as we're continuing to try to bend the staff away from the body. Inhale, letting it soften, big sway in the back. Exhale, scoop as we lift and spiral. By going slow, this nice 3 to 4 second count in each direction, we should be able to manage and control how the level of pain that we're moving into. Ideally, not moving into pain at all. On a scale of 0 to 10, I want to keep the pain level below a level 3. That level 1 and 2 I consider slight discomfort. So it still registers on the pain scale, but it's not elevating into that level of pain of 3 or above. Nice. Go ahead and set the staff down to the side. We're going to stay standing for a little bit longer, and we're going to get into our bowls of soup, starting with the hands down at our side, spreading the palms as wide as we can, and we're going to turn the palms as much up towards the ceiling as we can. Get that nice spiral action. That spiraling of the palms up, I want to feel the shoulder blades draw down on the rib cage like they're moving into our hip pockets and lifting up the sternum to the ceiling. We're going to get into our bowls of soup from this position. So we're going to spiral both hands, turning those thumbs down and in, rotating those palms all the way over. And we're going to let the hands come a little bit in front of the body as we continue to spiral so that we start to get this nice rounded upper back. As we exhale, inhale, we're going to spiral the palms back over to towards the ceiling as we let our arms reach a little bit more to hips or a little bit behind the hips. Again, I want to spiral those palms up to the ceiling. Feel that stretch across the chest. Exhale, we're spiraling arms, thumbs down towards the floor as we reach a little bit forward. See if you can feel that nice rounding of the upper back. Can you feel stretch in between the shoulder blades? On the inhale, arms are dropping closer to the hips as the palms spiral up towards the ceiling. Can you feel that nice stretch across the upper chest? Now I'm going to add one more little layer to this by getting back into our pelvic tilts. So as we're inhale, nice and tall, inhale, exhale, we're scooping the pelvis as we reach forward and spiral the thumbs down towards the floor. That's going to get us a little bit rounded in our low back with our upper back. Inhale, arms come back down to the side as the palms spiral up. Pelvis is tilting now towards the floor. We're getting a little bit sway in the back as we feel that nice lift and opening of the chest. Again, nice 3 to 4 second count in each direction. The other thing that nice slow count does is it allows us to move smoothly. It allows us to notice if there's any areas in our range of motion that feel a little clunky, maybe a little clicky, maybe there's a little crepitus to them. And we can slow it down even more and see if we can smooth those clunky points out. Can we figure out how to move so that it gets a little bit smoother? Good. Now we're going to bring our arms up a little higher, and how high we come is going to depend on if you have any kind of shoulder impingement. Ideally, I want to see if we can bring arms up to even level with our shoulders, but if there's some pain or impingement at this height, it's okay to keep them a little bit lower. Palms are going to be spiraled up towards the ceiling, so we got that nice open, lifted chest. And now we're going to alternate from one side to the other, keeping those hands spread as wide as you can, spiraling one thumb down towards the floor, seeing how far can you spin the long arm of that bone all the way up into the shoulder socket. How far can you turn and rotate down to the floor? And then how far can you open that palm back up and spin to the other side? Moving to the opposite arm, spinning that thumb down to the floor and then back up. Going side to side with this. Now, as I'm spinning through that long arm bone, I also want to be reaching as much away from the body. I want to think like I'm stretchy, and I'm seeing if I can stretch to touch the walls. I want to see if I can create as much decompression through the shoulders, all the way out to the fingertips, as I'm spiraling in and out from one side to the other. I want to exhale as we spiral in. Inhale as we spiral palms up, and then same thing to the other side. So this is 3 to 4 second counts, turning one side down and in. 3 to 4 second counts as you spin that palm up, and then 3 to 4 second count in each direction on the other side. Again, I want to notice any clunkiness in the shoulders in either direction of that spin. I have a little bit of a click in my left shoulder. My right shoulder spins pretty good. Left shoulder, right as I internally rotate, little clicky, more so as I externally rotate. Although the more I reach to the walls, that smooths out and it gets a little bit better. All right, we're going to now drop down all the way to the floor. Getting on to our back. And since we're going slow with breath, we're going to go ahead and get into some more specific crocodile breath. So we're going to make a nice big C shapes with our hands. The thumbs are going to go into the low back musculature. So thumbs are in the back, index fingers are wrapping around the front. I want the hands underneath the rib cage and above the hip bone in that nice meaty section of the abdominal wall. I don't want to be on top of rib cage bone. I don't want to be on top of the hip bone. I want to be in that nice meaty muscular section. We're going to get that nice inhale in through the nose, exhale out through the mouth as we draw that navel in. And I want to come back to that concept of expanding that abdominal wall like a balloon or breathing in like a crocodile. I want to feel that expansion in all directions. As you inhale, you should feel that breath move forward into the belly, which is going to push into your index fingers. I also want to feel it move into the low back, so you feel it pushing into the thumbs. And I want to feel it moving out through the side body, so you should feel it pushing into your palms. On each exhale, allow the hands to clench down just a little bit so that you can create some resistance for that inhale breath to move and push into. And with each inhale, see if you can expand that wall, that balloon, a little bit bigger. Again, nice 3 to 4 second count inhale. Nice 3 to 4 second count exhale. Once we get a good 5, 6 breaths, we're going to let our legs straighten out. I want to bring the feet so that they're about shoulder width apart. So I got a little bit of, my feet have a little bit of width to them. Toes are pointing straight up to the ceiling. And we're going to very lightly press down through the heels. I want to feel the heels grounded into the floor. Arms we're going to bring up into a nice Y position overhead. Now, if you find that your arm does not rest on the floor, it's a little off the floor, or head wants to come off the floor, then it's okay to move the shoulders out a little bit wider until you can find a point where the shoulders rest comfortably. I want to make sure that we're not in pain in the shoulders from our starting point. We're going to get into our some light baby roll stretch. If you have any kind of low back pain, then we need to move into this extraordinarily slowly and small. I want to start with a very, very small range of motion. So go slow, take your time in order to make sure that this is not painful. And if there is pain, we need to keep that pain below that level 3. Ideally below level 2. I want to keep it super, super light and just where it just barely feels like a little bit of a uncomfortable stretch, but it's not eliciting pain. From here, we're getting into that nice crocodile breath on the inhale, and on the exhale, we're going to lift our head and reach our hand across our body, kind of reaching across towards the opposite hand, seeing how far can we reach, keeping both heels engaged with the floor. So I don't want one heel lifting up. I want both heels pushing down. Inhale, we're coming back to the floor. Exhale, we're going to reach across to the other side. Again, maintaining our 3 to 4 second count. Inhale and exhale. And as you're going back and forth, notice if it feels a little bit harder to reach with your right hand or your left hand. Does one side, is it a little easier? Is the other side a little tighter, a little more restricted, or does it just feel harder? Another thing you can kind of pay attention to are your feet. Do your feet stay equally engaged with the floor as you reach through both sides? Or do you notice that when you reach on one side, that one foot wants to lift up a little bit? These are going to be indications of some immobility in your spine related to the, right side related to the left side. And that will be important as far as our gait mechanics go. We'll come back to our starting position, and now we're going to reach through our legs. So again, I want to make sure we're going slow and cautious, not moving into pain. We're going to lift one leg up, and I want to keep that leg a little bit elevated. And we're going to reach across our body as if we're trying to reach up onto a shelf or onto the couch. I don't want that foot to drop down to the floor because I want to avoid any kind of pinch or pain in the low back. As we reach, the shoulder is allowed to get lifted off the floor, but I want to try to keep some contact with the back of the hand. Inhale as we bring that leg back to the floor. Exhale as we lift the other leg and reach across. I really want to reach and extend through the toes, like I'm trying to stretch my toes out as I reach. Inhale as we bring it back to the center. Again, I want to make sure this is not painful. And once we kind of get can groove this movement without pain, the next thing is, how does it feel when you're reaching with your left leg compared to reaching with your right leg? And I want to notice the whole body. Is it tighter in the low back on one side compared to the other? Do you feel more tension up in the shoulders or in the neck on one side compared to the other? When I reach with my left foot across my left shoulder, especially through the chest, the pecs, is a little tighter, borderline uncomfortable. I'd say level 1 on a scale of 0 to 10. As you're getting into these, if it's not painful, each reach we can start to reach a little bit further, really trying to extend it out. We're not going to do too much on this for right now. We're actually going to come back to this and do more of these at the very end of the class. All right, so now we're going to change our position. We're going to come up into our quadruped. So grounding palms, spread fingers as wide as you can. Feel those palms ground to the floor, extending the elbows fully without locking. We're going to get into some light wrist mobility. So inhale, we're going to let our hips rock back towards our heels. Exhale, keeping the palms grounded to the floor. We're seeing how far forward can we rock forward, loading into the wrists. Inhale, rocks us back. Exhale, rocks us forward. I do not want to move into pain or a stressful position on the wrist. I want to be light and juicy with this movement. It should feel good, not bad. If the wrists feel stiff and achy, then I definitely want to stay on the soft side of this movement. I want to think about all we're doing is kind of putting some WD-40 into the joint, and we're trying to get that lubrication to just move around the fullness of that joint so that we get a little bit smoother range of motion. Next, we'll turn fingers out to the side, and we'll start our side-to-side glide. It's where I like to imagine we're pushing through one hand as we pull with the other hand. So I want to be very active. I'm moving my upper body by pushing and pulling through the hands. That should make the shoulder blades a little bit more active on the rib cage. So shoulder blades kind of whatever your hand is doing is going to create action at the level of the shoulder blade. And I'm still keeping everything at that 3 to 4 second count. Inhale as we come to the center. Exhale as we move over our wrist. Inhale as we come back to the center. And exhale as we go to the other side. Next, we're going to turn fingers all the way back towards the knees. The closer the hands are to the knees, the less intense this is. The further out we go, the more intense. I want this to stay light in intensity, not heavy. Keeping the palms grounded to the floor, we're now inhaling as we rock forward. Exhale as you feel your hips sink back to the to your heels. And again, feeling that nice load through the forearm space. And going nice and slow. Last position for the wrist is flipping the palms over to the back side, letting the elbows bend softly. We're going to actively push down into the floor, but I don't want to push hard because this might be a little bit uncomfortable in the back of the wrists. So it's a light push. The big thing here is I want to see how much can I actively straighten the elbows. As I exhale, inhale, I'm going to let them soften. And I want to feel, is there a stretch in the right or left or both elbows? If there is, that's great. That is what we want to work into. We just want to play in the juicy nature of that stretch. I don't want to force it. I do want to see that after a few reps of going back and forth into it, are you able to straighten the elbows a little bit more? That's what we want to achieve, is just a little bit more. We're not trying to make it perfect. If you're able to straighten the elbows fully with no stretch at all, then we can do a little bit of the rock back hips to heels. As we exhale, letting the hips sink back. Inhale, we're coming back forward. But I don't want to do this second part if I have a significant stretch in that elbow area. I want to work on the elbow first. We'll go ahead and come off the wrist a little bit. I want to give them a little bit of flow. Before we come back to the wrists. I do want to make sure that we don't put too much strain on the wrists. So if you need to take breaks as we do this, that is okay. We're now going to tuck our toes. I want to especially feel the feel the big toe tucked underneath as much as we can. Feel it dug into the floor. We're now inhaling as we rock forward. We're going to exhale as we feel our hips sink into our heels. And I want to start to feel that stretch through the ball of the big toe and into the arch of the foot. Inhale, rocks us forward. Exhale, lets our hips sink to our heels. Now, as we're inhaling and exhaling, as we're rocking back, I want to imagine we got a tail and we're trying to stick that tail up towards the ceiling as we rock back. What I want to avoid is scoop. I don't want the tailbones tucking underneath. The more you're able to stick that tailbone up as you rock back, feeling that weight of the hips to the heels, you should feel a little bit more mobility at the big toe joint and into the arch of the foot. And start to notice, how does the right big toe feel compared to the left big toe? Is one side a little stiffer, a little achier, tighter? Is it painful? If it's painful, then we need to be paying attention to our pain rules. Keeping it below a level 3, moving into it a little bit slower so that you don't trigger that 3 or above. On the next one, as we come forward, we're going to turn our heels out as far as we can, and we're going to see if how many of the rest of those toes, all the way out to the pinky toe, can we get tucked underneath. Everything else is going to be the same. We're inhaling forward and exhaling as we rock back hips to heels, feeling the tailbone tucked, sticking up towards the ceiling. How does that feel? This should be getting a little bit more stretch, obviously into those outer toes, but also into the lateral arch of the foot. Does this feel tighter on the right side or the left side? Any of these differences that we feel at the level of the feet are going to have very big impacts at the level of our gait mechanics. So this is a really valuable point of assessment in order to A, determine where we are moving well compared to not moving well, and B, kind of getting a good assessment of what might be a cause of pain patterns. We'll go ahead and come off the wrists again one more time for a moment, just to roll the wrists out. We're going to spend a little bit more time in quadruped. So loading into the ground again, palms, tucking toes. We're now going to get back into our breath with pelvic tilt. Inhale, feel that belly open up towards the floor. Feel the pelvis scoop, get that nice big sway in our back. Exhale, drawing the navel into the spine and scooping the pelvis. I want to isolate the hips here, so I don't want to get a lot of movement into the upper body, at least not just yet. We're going to add the upper body in a moment. Basically, we're doing that same pelvic tilt we did in the standing position. And I want to get a good sense of how does it feel moving in each direction. Is there pinch? Is there pain? Is there soreness? Do you feel it more as you open your belly up to the floor, or do you feel it more as you scoop? And I want to make sure we are not moving into pain. Level 1, level 2, slight discomfort, not going into a 3 or above. And again, if you feel some stretch, where it feels really good and juicy, maybe mildly sore. And I want to stay on the soft side of it, but I want to get some good movement into it, especially with our breath. So going slow, those 3 to 4 second counts in each direction. And we can now start to move into the rest of our spine. So as you scoop, we're going to continue to scoop and press into the floor through our hands, allowing that movement to come up into the shoulders. See if you can feel that stretch in between the shoulder blades, allowing that movement to go across the top of the head. And we can imagine we're trying to touch our tailbone to our forehead at this imaginary point right here in the middle on our exhale. And then as we inhale, pelvis is tilting down to the floor, creates that sway in our back, and then it continues to move up our back. Sternum reaches down to the floor and the head comes up last. I want to see if we can get a nice spinal wave through this movement generated from our tailbone. If you imagine the tailbone is the handle of the whip or the beginning of the wave, and your head is the end of the whip or the end of the wave. Can you feel each vertebrae, one at a time, moving, being generated from the tailbone, and then slowly working its way up to your head? And as you're doing this, notice if there's any particular levels of your spine where you get tension, tightness, restriction, where it doesn't feel as smooth. Good. All right. We're now going to change into our V-sit position, getting nice and wide as we can through the legs. Actively reaching the knees down to the floor, like you're trying to touch the back of your knees to the floor. Actively pulling the tops of the feet back towards the shins. The more active you are, reaching to the floor and pulling the feet back, you're going to feel your quads tighten up and tense up. Hands get to come down to the floor on the outside of the hips. And we're going to spiral those elbows out and away. Feel that chest lift up nice and tall. So I want to feel that nice grounded shoulder blades, tall spine, trying to maintain the height of that spine. And we're now going to do kind of our bowls of soup through our legs. So focusing on the kneecaps, we're turning the knees out as far as we can, like you're trying to touch the floor on the outside of the leg. And then you're spiraling the kneecaps in as far as you can, as if you're trying to touch the kneecaps to the inside of your legs. And we're going to exhale in both directions. So we inhale when as our feet come straight up to the ceiling. As you spiral them out and away is a nice slow exhale as you squeeze that into that range of motion. Inhale as you bring it back to the center. Exhale as you spiral internal. And again, I want nice 3 to 4 second count of inhale, 3 to 4 second count of exhale. So even though this may not be traveling very far, we're going slow and we're spending that entire 3 to 4 seconds, slowly squeezing into it, making sure it's not painful. And noticing how smooth is it on both sides. How far can you go? Can your kneecap go when you rotate out? Is it the same on the left side as it is for the right side? How far do your knees spiral in? And is it the same on the left and the right? I get more internal on my right than I do on my left right now. I have a little bit of pinch in my left hip. Mild pinch, but it's there. I actually feel it getting stretched and opened up as I externally spiral, which seems to smooth it out a little bit and give me a little bit more range as I internally spiral. Good. We'll go ahead and relax our legs. We're going to stay in this position, and we're going to do a little bit of neck mobility from here. So again, grounded palms, feel those shoulder blades packed down and back. We're going to start by checking our blind spots. Slowly turning the head, looking over the right shoulder. Inhale as we come to the center, and then exhale as we slowly look over the left shoulder. And I want to see how far can we get our chin to move over the edge of the shoulder. So I don't want to just reach with the forehead or the eyes, because that tends to cause a tilt in the head as we rotate. I want to keep the head nice and tall. So I'm really trying to reach with my chin, seeing how far can I get my chin to line up to the edge of my shoulder or beyond. And how is that on the left side compared to the right side? Does it feel tighter, more restricted as you move in one direction compared to the other? Do you get a bigger stretch on one side compared to the other? Is there pain? If there's pain, then I want to keep that pain level down below a level 2. I do not want to fool around with neck pain. I want to be extraordinarily soft with it. Good. We'll come back to our center. Now we're going to go into our tilt, our side tilt and lift. So I'm very lightly tilting my ear towards my shoulder. I'm not trying to touch my ear to the shoulder. This is about a small movement, barely shifting that ear. Opposite ear, I'm actively lifting it up towards the ceiling, like I'm trying to touch the ceiling, or like there's a piece of string pulling that ear up. We're going to exhale as we lift. Inhale as we come to the center and shift to the other side. Exhale as we lift. As we lift that ear up, that same side hand can ground down actively into the floor in order to create a little bit more traction stretch within this kind of side area of the neck. Notice how different this feels reaching with the left ear compared to reaching with the right ear. Is one side tighter, more restricted than the other side? My left side is significantly tighter. I've been dealing with some significant restriction issues through this right side neck and shoulder, largely related to the issue in my knee and an old issue with my shoulder, but also related to some dental issues I had more recently. But that can be a topic for another occasion, which would be a very interesting one. Good. All right. We're now going to shift into our shin box position. So I am in my left side shin box, grounding left palm to the floor. And I want to spiral that elbow out and away, feeling that shoulder blade pack down and back. We're going to focus on the back hip first. I want to inhale. I want to see, can we touch the floor as we inhale with that back hip? Can that back hip sit to the floor? And I want to make sure I don't want to lift the opposite side knee. So I don't want to feel this as a weight shift back. My weight is largely on my front leg, which is my left leg. I'm seeing if I can reach that back hip down without shifting my weight on top of it. If we can find, if we don't touch the floor, that's not a big deal. I want to see how close we can get to the floor. If you can touch the floor, that's fine. On our exhale, we're going to lift off the floor and we're going to reach that hip as far forward as we can. Again, I need my weight over my opposite hip in order to get as much movement in this back hip as possible. So I'm reaching to the floor on the inhale. On the exhale, I'm lifting and reaching that hip as far forward as I can go. Inhale, it drops. Exhale, it lifts off the floor and we're reaching it forward. And as we're exhaling, since we're drawing that navel into the spine, we can even add a little bit of that scoop. And the more we add that scoop, we should get some nice stretch through that front of the hip. And if the more we're able to get that hip extended with that scoop, we should also be able to feel some engagement, some tightening in the back, in the glute. So the big thing here is how much range of motion can we play with the hip? Because we're going to compare this to the other side. So we'll slowly switch. We can do a nice little windshield wiper transition, keeping the feet on the floor as we come to the other side. Grounding that palm, spiraling the elbow. My weight is now shifted onto my right hip, right shoulder. Left hip is more free to move. Inhale, we're seeing how much can we reach that hip down towards the floor. Exhale, lifting it up off the floor and reaching forward. Inhale, can you touch the floor? How different is it on this side compared to the other side? Are you able to reach further or not as far, or are they about equal? Exhale, as we lift, we're drawing that navel into the spine and we're lightly scooping. Can we feel that stretch through the front of the thigh? The more we can get into that stretch, can we feel the engagement of the glute? Can we feel that glute tightening up in the rear? Is there a difference one side compared to the other? This is a huge thing to pay attention to in our gait mechanics. I'd say this is probably one of the most important ones because it's so central to our core. The imbalances at this level of our hip are going to have pretty significant impacts through the rest of our gait mechanics. We'll go ahead and slowly transition back to the other side. We're going to do that same movement again. So again, grounded palm, spiraled elbow. Weight should mostly be on that left side or whatever side shoulder you are on. Inhale, reaching that hip to the floor. Exhale, scooping it up. Again, we're still comparing side to side. After 3 nice slow breaths, nice inhale as we drop. As we exhale and scoop, I want to lock in that hip. Scoop into it, keep that hip actively scoop, and now we're adding in our reach with rotation. Like I'm reaching over here to share bread with my buddy Skeletor. Inhale, we're bringing it all the way back in. Feel that hip drop all the way back towards the floor. Exhale, lifts it, scoops it, actively lock it in, and then continue to spiral. See how much can you reach and rotate with that locked in pelvis. Notice that level of stretch going into the low back, around the spine. How free does that movement feel? How far are you able to reach? And then we're going to slowly transition back to the other side. Grounded palm, spiral to elbow. Again, weight is now shifted onto my right side, hip and shoulder. Back hip, left hip is free to move. We're starting with inhale, feeling that hip drop. Exhale, nice active scoop. Second time on both sides should give you be a little bit more mobile, a little bit freer, should feel a little bit better. My left hip is my chronically tight hip. I have a little bit more access to range coming back to it the second time. On our third breath, as we scoop, locking that back hip in, then we're adding in our nice reach with rotation. Inhale brings it all the way back in. Exhale scoops. And then following with that reach. How free does the spine feel on this side compared to the other side? Whichever side hip was tighter, more than likely you're also going to find more stretch and restriction of that movement in your low back in that rotation. And that's true for me on this left hip. As I lock in this left hip is tighter. I don't have quite as much range of motion on it. And then I have a lot more restriction through rotation. It feels good, but it's significantly different to the other side. We'll go ahead and switch back across. Now we're going to get into our folds. I want to use the shin as our I want to stay square to the shin as much as we can. I want to keep shoulders and shin square together. Again, my weight is still largely on the left hip, and we're still going to play with this movement of the back hip, which is why I want to have my weight on this front hip. Inhale, back hip is down. Exhale, we're lifting and scooping, and then we're reaching with both hands evenly through that shin. I want to keep shoulders and hands even with the shin, and as we reach, I don't want one hand reaching further than the other. So we're finding that nice reach. Inhales, bringing us all the way back up, allowing that back hip to drop to the floor. Exhale, lifts and scoops as we reach. I want to see how much can we get that back hip locked in as we start to fold. So we get a stretch in 2 areas at the same time. We're going to feel it in the front of this back hip as well as the back of our front hip, the glute on the front hip. We are still keeping this to our 3 to 4 second exhale and inhale. After about 5 of those, we're going to switch to the other side. Again, nice, want to be square to our shin in the front. Inhale, that back hip can reach to the floor. Exhale, we're scooping it forward. And then both hands are reaching evenly through that shin. And again, I don't want one hand reaching further than the other. The reason I want to keep those hands square is I want to use this as a good assessment point. So I need it to be the same on both sides. How does that back hip, either that mobile back hip or restricted back hip, whichever side is tighter, then contribute to how far you're able to reach and fold and what you feel in that glute on the opposite side. Whichever hip is tighter in the back, more than likely that opposite glute is also tighter, because these are two muscles that are paired together in our gait. And if you're restricted on one side, it's going to create restrictions in its oppositional muscle on the opposite side. And so that's what we're more than likely, I expect you to experience. Whatever side the front hip is tighter, you're also going to be a little tighter in that opposite back glute. Once we get 5 on that side, we're now going to start going back and forth, doing 1 on each side. So as we get to the side, find that, let that hip extend. As we reach through the floor, inhale brings it all the way back up. Exhale takes us into our transition to the other side. Inhale as we finish our transition. Exhale as we scoop that back hip and fold. Inhale brings us back up. Exhale as we start our transition. Inhale as we finish our transition. Exhale as we fold. Now, as we're going back and forth, I'm less concerned about staying square to the shin. Now we get to explore a little bit. So as we explore, you can imagine that you're sitting on the face of a clock. You can reach straight to 12. We can reach out to 3 or 6 o'clock, whichever side we're on. We can go against the grain and reach back across the body. And we can, and anything in between. So this main rule here is it cannot be painful. It has to feel good and juicy, not painful. And we're going to do whatever we do on one side. We're going to go across and we're going to do the same thing on the other side. I still want to have this back hip scooped and engaged as we fold. But by going back and forth slowly, we really get a good indication of any imbalances that are different on the right side compared to the left side. And that awareness gives us the power to do something about it. We can work on these areas where things don't move as well in order to gain better balance and efficiency in our gait. I'm still moving slowly with breath. After you've gotten a good 3 to 5 reps side to side, we're going to keep going side to side, but now we're going to start to open up that shin box, making it a little bit bigger. As we fold, by changing that hip position is just going to, again, elicit some different feedback as far as mobility within the hips. Can you open up both sides evenly? Does it feel different as you get into your fold on one side compared to the other? Those differences are going to be indications of some mobility imbalances side to side. So I want to be very soft with those areas, but I definitely want to apply some movement into them, because movement is how we're going to regain that mobility. I don't want to be forceful. I just want to softly move right into it and moving out of it as we go side to side. And each one, we're slowly opening that back hip up a little bit more and a little bit more. This particular series of our shin box, I like doing up to 20 reps on each side, just slowly going back and forth. The grooving it in, I find feels really good on the hips and tends to elicit good feedback as far as moving through the rest of the day. Gait feels better, squats feel better, it's a little easier to get up and down off the floor, etc. All right, so we're going to come back to our back on the floor, and we're going to come back and do a little bit more of our baby roll stretch. So again, arms are coming up to a nice wide position, making sure that they're not painful and no pain in the shoulders, and our arms are softly resting on the floor. Toes are pointed straight up to the ceiling, and we are lightly engaged downwardly into the floor through our heels. Again, I want to feel even pressure in both heels. Nice inhale into our crocodile breath. Exhale as we lift our head and reach our hand across to our other hand. As I do this reach, I want to reach with my eyeballs just as much as I reach with my fingertips. Inhale brings us back to the center. Exhale brings us across to the other side. This is my right hand is my more challenging side. Right side of my low back tends to be a little bit tighter and more restricted, related to that tightness and restriction in my left hip. I also have a little bit of discomfort in my left shoulder, again related to that tightness and tension in the neck. But I'm keeping it all well below a level 3. I'm not moving into a 3. I'm not getting anywhere close to that level 3. I want to be able to explore movement non-painfully. I'd say that's a really important lesson in our movement work, is if you want to experience less pain in your movement during the day, then you have to give your body an experience of what non-painful movement feels like, which has to be in our practice. We practice our movement in order to prepare us for how we move through life. And if you're moving in your practice with pain, then it's going to hurt in your life in pain. So our practice is a good place to explore movement and figure out how to move in ways that don't hurt so much. All right, we're going to come back to our starting position, and now we're going to reach through our legs. This is the one, as we exhale, we're lifting that leg up high, and we're keeping it elevated as if we're reaching up onto a shelf. It is allowed to lift that shoulder blade up off the floor, but I do want to see if we can keep some contact with the back of the arm or the hand, even just the fingertips. Inhale brings us back to the center as that leg comes to the floor. Exhale as we reach across with the opposite side. As you reach, see if you're going to start to point and extend those toes. Feel that stretch get drawn further and further up towards the shoulders. Again, I want to make sure we are not moving into pain. And as we start feeling this a little bit open up a little bit more and more, as you reach through those toes, you can counter reach through the fingertips, getting nice and long, toe tip to fingertip. If there is any discomfort in the back or in the shoulders, then you need to back off a little bit in order to figure out how to experience this as non-painful as possible. Good. We're going to come back to center. Let our feet come back flat to the floor. And we're gonna make our big C shapes with our hands, and we're gonna come back and finish with a little bit of crocodile breath. Hands are going below the rib cage and above the hip bone, again in that nice meaty section of the abdominal wall. Thumbs are pressing into the low back. Index fingers are wrapping and touching, feeling the abdominals in the front. Palms are pressing into the side of the body. With each inhale, feel the balloon expand in all directions. With each exhale, feel the navel draw into the spine as your hands clamp down a little bit so that you can create more resistance for that next inhale. So you can really feel that inhale expand out and away. Again, nice 3 to 4 second count in each direction. As you're breathing in, feeling that expansion out, notice shoulders and neck. I want to keep shoulders as soft and relaxed to the floor. So as you exhale, feel any tension in the shoulders and the neck. Let that tension release into the floor. We can go ahead and let our arms drop down to the side with the palms up. We're going to continue breathing into that crocodile breath in the belly, but now we can also start to allow that breath to expand up into the ribs. Same concept. I want to feel the breath move forward into the chest, into the upper back, and out through the side of the ribs on the inhale. And on the exhale, navel comes into the spine and all the tension releases to the floor. We're breathing into tension, filling up that balloon, expanding the chest. We are exhaling, letting that tension release to the floor. And when you're ready, we can open our eyes and very slowly get up. We just did a lot of deep breath work, so I want to make sure that we take our time coming up to sit before we go to a stand to make sure that we're not dizzy or lightheaded.